quick reminder for our audience, if you want to ask Jonathan any questions while we're talking, we'll get to them at the end, and you can do that using Slido. So if a QR code doesn't appear behind us, you can go to slido.com, choose the money track, and enter your questions there. Also, do upvote any questions that you would like to be answered. So Jonathan, welcome. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
No worries. So, I mean, there's a lot to talk about. There's lots going on with Binance right now. But let's start with you. I mean, you've been in finance for a long time. You've been with Binance for 16 months, and before that, you were with eToro. Is that right?
Yep, correct. So I've been in, I'm probably one of the oldest guys at Binance. I've worked in financial services for about 25 years. A lot of that was in high street banking. And then about 8-9 years ago, I moved into electronic money. Set up an EMI business, electronic money business, which was regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority, which is payments. And then in 2019, we closed the transaction and moved to eToro. I was there for about 14 months. And then about 15 months ago, I moved to Binance, originally as Director of Compliance, but then my role changed.
Okay, and so now you're UK General Manager, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And I mean, what's Binance's mission in the UK? Because for people who haven't been following, Binance has had some run-in with the regulator. There are some things you are allowed to do and some things you aren't allowed to do. Is that right? Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, sure. So I would say our mission in the UK is very much like our mission globally, and that's to increase our regulatory footprint. So wherever Binance looks to operate, it likes to either be licensed or registered. And that could be from a crypto registration perspective, or also looking at other types of licenses as well. Ultimate goal is to be able to offer our customers regulated products and services. Also, whilst we do that, we are looking to, and we do, engage with policymakers and regulators just to see how we can assist and shaping the regulatory landscape as well. Okay,
so what regulated products can you offer Binance customers in the UK at the moment?
That's a good question. It's quite complicated as well, so depending on your regulatory position, there's a relatively clear framework which companies operate to. In the case of Binance, we limit our products and services to those customers who are not exempt from our products and services. It's quite a complicated answer. So,
sounds complicated.
Yeah, it is, yeah. But what we do is we need to ensure that we are fully compliant with the local regulations.
Okay, I want to get into your relationship with the regulator a bit more in a minute. But I mean, there's so much going on in crypto at the moment. I mean, but Binance has managed to look relatively stable with all this kind of turbulence around it. I mean, earlier on this stage, we were talking about crypto winter. I mean, Bitcoin is down more than 50% compared to earlier in the year. Ether is down even more than that. I mean, why is it that Binance has managed to remain this kind of beacon of stability in the industry?
There's probably many reasons to that. I think in part, the leadership team, the senior leadership team, led by CZ, he's a forward thinker. So he always has literally, a long-term plan, very cognizant of what's happening in the marketplace. And also, we're only a relatively young company. We're only 5 years old, so we're quite agile and flexible, and we're able to react and respond to new and emerging trends and risks in the marketplace.
Can you give an example of that, just to make it tangible? I mean, how has Binance reacted to something?
Yeah, sure. So I think over the course of the last 18 months in particular, we've, from a regulatory perspective, we've been on a drive to increase our footprint. But then how does that play out operationally as well? So we've hired people, particularly in the compliance teams, in the legal teams as well. So we've seen opportunities to onboard those people. We also work very closely with policymakers as well. So we kind of set our stall out well in advance, and we're able to build pretty good relationships globally as well. And we work closely with some of the external stakeholders, which sometimes gives us a competitive advantage. But what it means is we're able to really have that longer term plan where maybe some organisations possibly don't.
Okay. I mean, But do you think kind of all this turbulence has affected the way people see Binance? I mean, last time CZ spoke to Wire, did an interview with one of my colleagues, he was talking about how he still believes that Bitcoin has enormous value, even though the price might not be enormous anymore. But do you think, I mean, people who buy into crypto and use Binance, do you think their trust in the market has been dented? Or do you still feel like you've got kind of a big wealth of support from people?
Yeah, I believe we do have a big wealth of support. I mean, we are the biggest in the world, and we still have a very active user base, and it's a growing user base as well. But I agree with you that certain trends have changed, and what we are particularly cognizant of is continuing to put the customer at the centre of everything we do. So we're very big at the moment on education and supplying information, filling the information gaps as well. Making sure our customers and even the communities get the opportunity to access information and education opportunities.
What information gaps? Where are these gaps?
That could be things as simple as what is crypto, how do you use crypto, how do you cleanse your wallets, to fraud awareness, how at the moment, particularly at the moment, how people could be victims to crime. So there's a lot of people go out there with the misconception thinking they're going to 10x their investment in a short space of time. That's not necessarily the case, and sometimes those people can become vulnerable. So it's our responsibility, along with other firms as well, is to really work closely with the communities to make sure that people are not necessarily victims to those frauds. And
do you think that's kind of a disadvantage of an industry that's moving so quickly like crypto, is that, I mean, you have people who are so deep into the industry now, but you also have people who don't even know the answers to the basic questions?
Yeah, we do tend to see that. So the actual crypto adoption is still relatively low. So you do have that kind of the crypto community are pretty knowledgeable, but you do see the people who are coming into the market now, probably sometimes they've been induced thinking that there are high gains to be made. So again, it's having the responsibility in being customer centric as well, making sure they're fully aware of the risks involved in potential investments.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the UK. I mean, the UK has this long tradition of being kind of a centre of finance, but that reputation has got a bit complicated when it comes to crypto. I think everyone would agree with that. So how would you describe the crypto market here, the digital asset market here in the UK compared to other countries?
I see it being buoyant. So there is still a huge amount of interest, and it's a growing interest. People are obviously a bit more cautious now as to, economically how much money they can invest. Again, mindful that people enter into this space for the correct reasons, and that plays back to the education, making sure that we manage their expectations, because they might go into YouTube and see something which maybe overpromises. So, but all in all, I still see it as a very buoyant marketplace.
Okay, even compared to, I don't know if we talk about the US, I mean, how does the UK compare to the US?
The good thing about the US is we're regulated by the FCA, the UK is regulated by the FCA, which is still considered and is a tier 1 regulator. So it has huge respect internationally, the UK marketplace. And that I think that's really important. The UK still has a very good reputation for being a centre of financial excellence, even post-Brexit as well. And that's not just for crypto, it's for banking services, for payment services as well.
Okay. So last year, Britain's financial regulator, the FCA, said that Binance's complex and high-risk financial products posed a significant risk to consumers. I mean, has your relationship with the FCA improved since it said that?
What I would say is, and I'll give you a general or broad answer to that question, if I may. And this is the approach we take with all regulators internationally. Wherever we look to operate, we always look to become regulated, whether we are or we are looking to get regulated there. So it follows that when you are looking at becoming regulated, you have to have an open and transparent relationship with the local regulator, and that's something that we certainly take priority. How
do you create that open and transparent relationship?
I think there's different levels to that, but there's a willingness to engage, to provide information when asked, to do it in a timely manner. What I would say is that with Binance, it's only 5 years old. It's the biggest in the world, biggest exchange in the world, but it's only 5 years old. So, we're still learning as well. Our motivations are to learn, to continue to learn, and to work closely with regulators, policy setters, local governments. So and the UK is no different to anywhere else where we'd look to operate as well.
On that subject of learning, what do you think Binance has learned? I think it's probably the same for all crypto-based companies as well. So there's certainly been a big evolution over the course of the last few years in crypto regulation. It's gone from, in some ways, being very silo, a bit unsure for both customers, for regulators, and for those firms. So it's good to see that the horizon looks a bit clearer. We see that particularly in Europe with the advent of the MiCA regulations. But what have we learned particularly? To continue to invest in compliance, in legal teams, which we do, and also the infrastructure that we're looking to build as well. You mentioned Europe, and I think that's quite interesting because we're getting kind of this gulf emerging if we consider UK as part of the wider region of Europe. France, for example, has welcomed Binance, but then on the other side you have countries that are more wary, which, along with the UK, includes the Netherlands as well. So, is that normal? What separates these countries? Why are you getting such a big divergence in opinion in one single region?
I guess that's the question for a regulator, I guess. But I suppose in Europe, particularly, we historically we've seen that kind of country by country approach to regulation in the absence of a kind of pan-European regulation. But we will see that pan-European regulation when we see the rollout of MiCA. And we see that elsewhere, like with, for example, electronic money, where you can get registered or licensed in one particular country and passport your services across Europe. We're not there yet with Europe, with crypto, but we will be in the next few years. And I think when that comes about, regulators will be able to get a better sense and work more collaboratively on a pan-European basis. So at the moment, it's about interpreting things more locally, and that can be a bit of a challenge for everybody.
Okay. For people who might not know about it, what is MiCA, and is it kind of a model, or is it something you're concerned about?
No, not at all. It's a regulatory framework, which means that, unlike at the moment, if you wanted to operate, say, in France, you'd need a registration to operate in France. But at the same time, if you wanted to operate in Italy or in the Netherlands, like you said, you would need to become registered there as well. So you'd literally have to have 3 separate registrations. And what the regulatory framework can differ from one country to another, and you could be prohibited from doing certain things in one country but not in a different country, marketing being an example. What MiCA will do is it'll have a regulatory framework which covers all of Europe, so you could effectively become regulated in, say, the Netherlands and offer your services to other customers in different countries from your Netherlands base.
Okay. And then shifting gears a bit, Binance CEO CZ has said the company could spend up to $1 billion this year on acquisitions. Do you think acquisitions are going to play a big part in the UK strategy?
Possibly so. We have Binance Labs, as we know, which currently manages, I think it's around 7.5 billion in assets. It supports about 200 projects. That's a very active side of the business, so it could possibly watch this space. We'll find out. Okay.
And there's been, on the subject of acquisitions, there's been quite a lot of controversy about big exchanges, not just Binance, but also your rival FTX, sort of using this uncertain period or taking advantage of this uncertain period to buy up other companies, distressed or not, and people are worried that this is creating kind of a centralization in crypto, which is kind of, some people would consider to be against the ethos underpinning the industry. What do you think about that? Do you think there's been greater centralization in the industry?
To an extent, yes. I think we see the emergence of some of the bigger players. But the whole narrative around centralization can come about as well, or the movement away from the decentralization can come about with regulation. But I still see, the actual uptake of crypto and the number of people who are actually using it suggests there's still a long way to go, and there's enough space in the marketplace for other players, as long as they do so in a compliant way, following the basic concepts of customer protection and market integrity. Yeah.
And do you think in these difficult times, I mean, is it the role of Binance and FTX, should it be the role of these big companies to kind of bail out smaller, struggling parts of the industry to kind of save crypto? There's been a bit of talk about that.
I think the whole concept of saving crypto is, it's a huge responsibility that needs to be borne by many different players, both regulators, companies if they can, if it makes sense. But I wouldn't necessarily put that responsibility on one or two players. I think what we're looking at is the evolution of new technologies like Web3, for example, which we are very excited upon, but also the evolution of regulations, stability in the regulatory framework, which will enable innovation and may make the sector more stable for other players to either remain or to enter.
Okay.
That's important.
And finally, before we go on to the audience questions, which we have a lot of, I can't let you go without asking you about the hack that happened last week.
Okay.
Hackers were able to access £570 million in tokens. I mean, how did this happen? It's quite a big deal.
Yeah. So I don't know that much about it, to be honest with you, but I know there'll be a deep dive on this. But I think what's important to say is that the BNB chain is not actually owned or controlled by Binance. It's a community-led initiative. So there will be a post-mortem that takes place, but I think in actual terms, the number is still substantial, but it's a lot lower. I think it was close to 100 million, because the majority of funds were frozen by the community as well.
Okay, when's the post-mortem expected?
I don't know. I don't know.